Hey, trainers. Welcome back to the audio-video podcast that Tyler and I are working on together here. Hopefully you have tuned in to part one. The basic gist of the project here is for us to try and work together to rank our favorites of the top 151 Pokemon from the first gen. This is generally being done in celebration of the Kanto week that we have coming up in Pokemon Go. So we are celebrating Kanto week by ranking these Kanto Pokemon and sort of trying to work through some of our nostalgia, talk about our experiences with Pokemon and our childhood kind of memories with Pokemon along the way. So it's been a lot of fun so far. Tyler, how do you feel about the first wave of Pokemon that we've been able to rank here?
I had a lot of fun yesterday. Really brings back your childhood. We only did the first 50 yesterday, and there's a lot of Pokemon those first 50 that really aren't that exciting. So today we're going to get into some of the bigger, stronger, more appealing Pokemon. So I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. So our aim is to get through Electrode, which was, what did you say, 101, 102? Something like that.
Electrode would be 101.
Excellent. So we'll turn this into kind of a three-part series, and then maybe we'll come up with more ideas for things to talk about and do some more of these in the future, potentially. But we're just going to jump right in. Our next kind of evolutionary line here is going to be Diglett and Dugtrio. And I always liked the artwork for Dugtrio, but I never found either of these Pokemon to be especially helpful in the games that I played. I don't know if you had a different experience or if you have similar feelings.
Diglett is not all that great to me. Its design is weak. It's like a little mole. I do like Dugtrio, however. If they watched part one, I like him for similar reasons as I like Sandslash. He can learn Dig, which is a very powerful move in the original game. Again, lets you dodge attacks. It's very effective. Dig, is an HM attack, so it lets you get out of a cave if you're trapped in it. If you use the Dig like you would use Fly or Surf, it'll actually just take you back to the last Pokestop that you visited. So if you're ever trapped somewhere and can't get out, we're running out of items or your Pokemon are all about to die, you can use Dig, and that'll take you back to the most recent Pokestop. So that's always a really good thing. I actually like Dugtrio a decent amount. I would probably put Dugtrio one tier below Sandslash. And then I would probably put Diglett probably in the E tier would be where I would probably place them. So I'd probably put Dugtrio maybe in C and Diglett in E.
Fair enough.
Dugtrio's design's not as cool as Sandslash. Thoughts?
Yeah. I was also thinking about Diglett going into the kind of E category. And as a reminder to folks, in case you missed part one, or if you just need a refresher on part one, we have this ranking system that starts with S for the superior rank, and then it works kind of like ranking things at school. You have A, B, C, and we work our way down. So right now, the E rank is where we place the Pokemon that kind of have the least value in terms of gameplay, the worser designs, the least amount of interest, and that's where we are putting Diglett. Dugtrio did have kind of a neat design, so I'm with you on that. I was thinking more of the D rank, but then having you mention the value of Dig in those original Game Boy games is a pretty convincing argument. I wish that Dig had remained a kind of meta-relevant move in Pokemon Go. It's not very good in Pokemon Go. It's not very energy efficient. You can get to Earthquake in just another, second or two, and it does far more damage. So
it doesn't have the utility that the other games use, the dodging aspect and the outside, the fighting abilities.
Right. So that's kind of a bummer for Dugtrio.
Maybe the game will evolve whenever you can fly and surf and all these different things. So
yes, they seem to be trying all kinds of new things with AR environments. So who knows?
Got to keep it going. Can't get stale.
That's right. Okay, well, speaking of getting going, we have Meowth and Persian next, both of which have some kind of specific nostalgic aspects if we're thinking about the anime, because, of course, there's a talking Meowth that's a part of Team Rocket, so comic relief, very fun, very loved character. And Persian is notoriously a pet for Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket.
Yeah, I don't actually know why Meowth can talk. They might have explained it. I just don't remember why. I always thought that was interesting. Maybe you know why he can talk. Maybe Team Rocket experimented on him. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, yeah, that's Meowth's part, right? If you're talking about design, he's there for comic relief, and he does it very well, right? I mean, that aspect alone makes him a fairly high ranking. I mean, his design, I mean, he's just a cat, but I think the fact that he has, a personality, unlike almost any other Pokemon, makes him, higher ranking. I don't know. Where would you put Meowth?
I agree. I was thinking maybe in the B or C kind of area. I think the
I'm good
design
with
is
either of
a
those.
the design is kind of a maybe point against it, so it doesn't quite get to the same space as maybe a Pikachu or a Bulbasaur or something like that. But still, pretty fun, pretty iconic.
Yeah, I'd probably go with the C range is what I would say, because I don't think he's matches some of the ones we already have in B. And if you took away the talking aspect, I mean, he'd probably be, D or E, in my opinion. So
Fair enough. Well, the rest of Giovanni's Pokemon that we've come across so far are in the C rank. So does Persian join the others in C, or does it move up?
Persian's kind of got that elegant feel to me. He kind of represents wealth and power. Not a lot of things that Pokemon would generally stand for.
Hmm.
It's more of a kid's game. It's supposed to be fun, adventure. I think it kind of gives the opposite vibe. It's supposed to represent, power, control. I mean, it's just a bigger cat. I would probably, I mean, he is I mean, I do think Giovanni is a cool character. There's got to be a villain.
Hmm.
He's a good villain. I would probably put him in the C range. He's much better than Venomoth and Zubat and things like that. So might
For
as well
sure.
just stick all the Giovanni's Pokemon in number C or letter C.
Right. Yes, at least for now. We'll have to talk about some of his other Pokemon as we get further down the line here. I agree. I think he's such a cool villain. Such a mysterious character, very intimidating, super fun to watch in the TV show. And all of his Pokemon were really, really fun to watch there too. We have another kind of iconic one next because Misty carried a Psyduck around for so long. Also comic relief, but in a different way. I always sort of empathized with Psyduck because I walk around social situations just confused all the time. How are you feeling about Psyduck?
I probably liked Psyduck a lot more when I was younger. Now that I'm an adult, Psyduck kind of annoys me. Uh, so it might have changed over time. Like if you've ever watched the Detective Pikachu show, I mean, he's in there to be an annoyance, right? That's what he is. But that's
Sure.
by character design, so it's hard to fault their design. Um, I, I mean, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Psyduck. Um, I mean, it's just kind of annoying. I don't know. I mean,
I think we should
he
put
has
it
no.
in. Go on.
I mean, he has no real utility, right? I mean, his evolution Golduck is a lot cooler looking. I mean, I would probably rank Golduck higher than Psyduck just based on that. But overall, I think they're both relatively low rankings. But I'm not the only one here, so let me hear your thoughts.
My first thought was to put both of them in C. I like Golduck's design a lot better, and it does have more utility. But there's just no denying the sheer number of plushies of Psyduck that have been sold over the years, right? I really think people developed an attachment to it over time.
I'm good with placing them wherever you think. I could go for them both in C. If that works for you, that works for me.
Okay.
Feel like C is kind of our catch-all right now.
Right. At least we are starting to develop kind of a baseline where we can compare the Pokemon we haven't ranked yet to some things that are already grouped together in these categories. I'm going to have to figure out if I can drag and scroll up. I can't, so that's going to be challenging. What do these do? Okay.
You might have to stop, put him in a different level beforehand and move him around.
Yeah, maybe so.
So as far as Manky, since Manky's next, not the biggest fan of his design. He's kind of like a hairy pig.
Right.
He's kind of like a monkey based on the name, as you can tell, but he's got a pig nose. I don't know. I'm not really a big Manky fan. I do like Primeape. He's, especially when you were a kid, he's cool. I mean, he's got boxing gloves on. I mean, come on. Look, I mean, it's just kind of cool, kind of flashy. I like Primeape probably pretty substantially more than I like Manky. But I mean, I could be fine putting Manky down in D or E and Primeape in C, somewhere around that range, probably.
Yeah, my first thought for Manky was to put it in the D category. I think it's a little better than, say, a Pidgey or a Diglett, but it's, still not just an outstanding design, right?
And like, what's a cross between a monkey and a pig?
Yeah, very odd idea for the character design. But I'm also with you that I like Primeape quite a bit more. And at least in Pokemon Go right now, it has a lot more utility because it has access to fighting and dark moves, which makes it close to some of the other meta types like Obstagoon, but a little easier to access.
I like Primeape. I could even be convinced he's a B if you're thinking he's maybe a B. I mean, I like him a lot better than I like Persian, Golduck, Pidgeotto. I like him a lot better than a lot of the ones in C. So if you think he's deserving of B, I wouldn't argue. I think he's cool design. I like a lot about him.
Yes. Ferocious design, which makes it very appealing if you're trying to build a team for battle. Very intimidating character. Access to all kinds of excellent moves. And I almost forgot, Ash kept a Primeape for a while in the anime, so you have that aspect to kind of connect us to it emotionally as well.
Hard to argue those.
Yeah. B's a good place for it. And now we have our adorable little fire dogs here.
Now, I will say I like both of these Pokemon a good deal. For different reasons. I think Arcanine, is going to be probably an A tier, maybe even an S tier. I mean, his design is great. Growlithe, I would put basically one stage probably below Arcanine, wherever we finally decide. I mean, the design is great. Dog, Firefox, and Arcanine, let's not forget, is huge. He's the size of, 3 Great Danes. He's not a small dog.
Right.
He's 6 to 10 feet tall, weighs probably several hundred pounds, and is Blaine, who's my favorite gym leader, is, that's his go-to Pokemon. The Blaine's Arcanine card, which unfortunately I don't have, or I'd be showing you guys, is an awesome card back from the early 2000s. Honestly, I would say Arcanine is probably an S tier for me. And then I'd probably put Growlithe in A or B. And so those are kind of where I'm at.
That's very high rankings. Do you have your cards with you again? I thought the standard Arcanine card was pretty neat as well.
I do have. So the Arcanine card itself, is actually not that valuable. It's not a rare. It's actually an uncommon.
But the
But
artwork.
I do have my Arcanine card.
Yeah. I always liked that
Uh,
as a kid.
and it says its height is 6'3" and weighs 342 pounds.
So bigger than either of us.
Yes, it's probably, I think it might be like top 3 or 4 in weight,
Oh,
actually.
wow.
Yeah, I believe it weighs more. I mean, it weighs more than Blastoise, Charizard, Venusaur. I mean, obviously Snorlax weighs more.
Sure.
And Lapras weighs more. But yeah, it's one of the it's one of the larger Pokemon. So
I didn't
and
realize
like I
that.
said, I think there are several Pokemon worthy of S, and I think Arcanine would be a worthy inclusion.
Well, I didn't have the same attachment to it necessarily, but I feel like you made convincing arguments there. To be honest, I have more of a, the relationship we described between Mankey and Primeape is closer to how I feel about Growlithe and Arcanine. But given the amount of enthusiasm that you have for it and that I'm sure other fans have for it, I think, maybe they belong in higher tier categories.
I mean, if you think about the anime in the theme song, Ash is riding an Arcanine. So
It's true. See, now we're getting to a tough place because we don't have that much to base the S tier off of yet. My gut impulse was going to be to put it in B, Arcanine in B, and Growlithe in C.
okay, I mean, if you think B, I would be fine with Arcanine going in A as well. But I don't think I could put Arcanine any lower than A.
Yeah. Let's try A for now. And again, at the end, we'll do a full sweep where we compare all the Pokemon against each
Move
other
things
again, and we
around.
can move things around.
And then as far as Growlithe, so if you look at the other C, I mean, I could be fine with him in C, but I mean, I would say I like Growlithe more than I like Kakuna, Pidgeotto, Clefable, the Ducks, Meowth. So that would be the only reason I would say putting Growlithe in B. But if you think Growlithe is more of a C, then this is a two-way street. So just whatever you think.
Let's put it in B for now, because just because I didn't have a strong attachment to it as a kid doesn't mean that its overall design is bad or its overall popularity is insignificant or whatever. I do think a lot of people really like Arcanine. Another one of my childhood friends who still plays all the games and really loves Pokemon with all her heart has Growlithe and Arcanine in her top tier players as well. So I
If
think
you like dogs, then those are your go-to. So
right. And I grew up without dogs. We're going to have automatic backlash from some of our listeners, but I'm much more of a cat person. So
fair enough.
thus my attachment to Meowth and Persian, perhaps.
Hey, if we want to bump Meowth or Persian up, I'm all for it. If you want to put one of those up higher, I mean, if you're a cat person, don't let me steal the show.
Oh no, that's all right. I think they're in a good place. My gut was telling me to put them in C when I was rating all of the different aspects of them. It's just as like a matter of nostalgia and personal preference, I like them. So, but C is not a bad rank. I think they fit well there.
Yeah.
And we have several sets of evolutionary trios coming up that I think are going to be fun, starting with our frog friends in the Poly family. How do you feel about what's the first one? Poliwag? Yeah, they've added more in later generations, so keeping them all straight has been difficult.
Yeah, so these are going to be Wag, Whirl, and Wrath. Now I do like Poliwrath. I don't really care all that much about the other two. But talking at them as a unit, the design, I guess it's a whirlpool is what's on their chest, kind of like a, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they, tadpole? I mean, Poliwag, we'll start with Poliwag. I mean, he's a tadpole. It's not all that exciting. He doesn't even have arms. So there's not a lot appealing to him. I mean, I understand what reason you make your first tier kind of look so sad and pathetic, because it's got to be able to evolve and get bigger and stronger,
Right.
is the case with most of your first level things. I mean, Poliwrath's got muscles and he's got, he just looks way more intimidating, which
Yeah.
is by design. But I would say Poliwrath is my favorite out of the three. I don't care much for Poliwhirl. He's just kind of a necessary stage in between evolutions where he grows arms and he's just kind of there. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I agree that Poliwrath is very cool, and I think that there's arguments to be made that it belongs in one of those, upper tiers. I also agree that Poliwhirl is just kind of there because it's almost obligatory. There needs to be a stage where there's one with arms. So I'd probably put Poliwhirl in the bottom tier. But
You mean like banished, or you mean?
oh no, not banished, but
Yeah.
just in the E
Yeah,
tier.
I would
maybe.
agree with you for Poliwhirl. Yeah, I mean, there's just no, like I said, there's a obligatory reason that you have a stage 2, and that's it, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of.
yeah, I think Poliwrath. Yeah, I think Poliwrath is worthy of a higher rank, at least B, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think I like him less than Arcanine, but I think he's better than the group that we have in C.
I do too. In fact, I'm sort of tempted to put it in A.
I could be argued for A. I think Poliwrath's. I mean, I still like Arcanine better, but I like Poliwrath a lot as well.
I think it's neat to have the combined water fighting typing, and I think they were pretty creative in designing a character that could encapsulate that. It has so much utility, especially now in Pokemon Go, right? Because it has access to all of those different elemental punches. It can do Ice Punch, it can do Thunder Punch. It still has all the fighting moves, it still has all the water moves. It can do so much. Such a neat, ferocious design. I really like Poliwrath.
Yep, let's go with A.
Excellent. And then I want to make the argument for Poliwag that it's also one that has sold a lot of toys. It's one that a lot of people think is kind of cute. It's one that I think is fairly popular among fans. So maybe the D rank instead of the E rank works better.
Yeah, I like Poliwag more than I like Poliwhirl. So I definitely would say D.
Cool. Okay, so we have those set, and then I've got to tell you, I've been really excited to talk about the next 6. They're among the most popular, and actually the next set of 3 is way up there for me in terms of favorite Pokemon, which is probably unsurprising. I'm on Team Mystic. I'm all about the psychic types and the water types and the ice types, right? But so next we have Abra, Kadabra, and Alakazam.
I do like the next 3 quite a bit as well. I will say Abra annoys me, right? Because if you don't catch him on your first throw, he teleports away. Pokemon Go basically, instituted that, and it came from the original game. That's how it was in the first game. You basically had one attempt. You didn't get him, he was gone. So it was always hard to, catch a good Abra because he would always teleport.
Oh yeah.
But that doesn't mean I don't like the character. I mean, I think that's part of his design. I mean, I mean, and I even like their names, Abra, Kadabra, Alakazam,
Right.
It's catchy. I like it. I like all 3 quite a bit. Out of the 3, I definitely think Abra is my least favorite. Um, and then I probably like them in the order. I say Kadabra and Alakazam are probably almost on the same tier to me. I mean, they're almost the same type of thing. And I like to say they're both pretty high. And I've got a little tidbit for Kadabra. He's actually based on a real life magician.
Oh, no
I'm
way.
not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure what his name is. But in like 2003, when they were still making cards, it was not the base set, but it was a different set. The person that he's based off of actually sued the Pokemon company and no longer let them print Kadabra cards. So in any set from like 2003 to like 2017 or 18, there was no Kadabras in any of those sets. He just now recently, I read this somewhere, that he just now recently gave them permission to reuse Kadabra. So for about 15 years there, the Pokemon Go company or anybody or Pokemon company are making the cards. They weren't allowed to print Kadabra because the person that it's based off of didn't like it or had a dispute. So
I had no idea. That's so interesting.
But like I said, I would probably put Abra maybe in the B or C tier, and I would say that Alakazam and Kadabra are both at least in the A tier.
I'm so happy
I
you
like their
said that.
designs. I mean, I like almost everything about them.
I do too. I thought their cards were great. I thought their, the artwork on those cards was great. The design was interesting. One of my favorite sets of episodes in the anime is when Ash encounters Sabrina. And of course, that was one of the most fun stages of those early games too, is fighting Sabrina. And for those who have been following this channel or the Facebook group for any length of time, you know that my gamer tag is AlaKAHamm. So that puts together Alakazam, of course, with my last name, Hammonds. And so I'm an enormous fan of Alakazam. So A tier is great. Oh yeah.
There's the holographic base set Alakazam. It's a great card. It's a great card.
One of my absolute favorites as a kid. I think I would argue that Alakazam is my second favorite Pokemon. And we'll get to firsts later. There's a piece of me that wants to put it in the S rank, but I don't know if that's just personal preference or if it's like actually warranted.
I mean, Alakazam, I wouldn't be against putting him in the S tier. I mean, he's everything that's cool, right? So
cool. Well, then I will just move it up and we'll have those evolutions spread out over the S, A, B kind of rank set there. Yeah, I'm happy you felt that way about them too. I really love those three.
It's probably a common opinion. I'd say most people like them a fairly decent amount.
Yeah. I'm really hoping that they introduce Mega Alakazam to Pokemon Go soon. It seems like everything is getting its Mega Evolution except the Psychic types, so it will be nice for us to get some Psychic type Mega Evolutions hopefully soon. But kind of going the opposite direction, we have Fighting types, which are, of course, weak to Psychic type attacks because mind over matter, right? But these are also very popular players, Machop, Machoke, and Machamp. How do you feel about those?
I like them a lot as well. I don't really care as much for Machoke, the middle evolution. And I guess the Machop's not that great either. But I'm a huge fan of Machamp. His design, the forearms, it's hard to beat. I'm a big fan of Machamp, and I'll say right off the bat, I think we should at least put him in the A tier. His design is just phenomenal. Forearms, everybody, how easy would life be if you had a couple extra arms? He's strong, he's buff, he's your ideal fighting type. I don't like the Machop and Machoke, the stage 1, stage 2, near as much as I like the Abra and Kadabra in the stage before. I could put those down a little bit farther. Machoke kind of strikes me as kind of dumb. He's just kind of like your jock, maybe in high school, who just works out and isn't very intelligent. He's just kind of there. So he's probably my least favorite. But I don't like him. I mean, I'd probably say like Machoke's probably like a D. I'd probably put Machop in like a C, and then I'd probably put Machamp in A. That's kind of where I would be.
I think you read my mind on those rankings. I thought Machop is definitely better than Rattata, but it's not all that interesting. Machoke, same thing. But Machamp, I think you did a great job of describing all the reasons why Machamp is so beloved. And it usually had that champion belt in a lot of the early imagery.
Yes.
Everyone was like, oh man, this is successful and strong. And not only is it strong like the others, but when you're looking at stereotypical images of strong men, you're looking at their arms, right? Because they've been working out to have those enormous biceps. So what's better than a fighter with enormous biceps? A fighter with enormous biceps on double the arms, right? So it just seemed unbeatable when you look at it, right? Very intimidating player. I think it's definitely popular for a reason.
Agreed.
And you have that great holographic card that you showed us in the first episode too, if you want to bust that back out.
Yeah, I'll give it a look. So the Machamp card.
Never
Gotta
get
love it. And like I said, this is probably my rarest card because it is a first edition holographic. It's pretty special card. So
yes. And that was the holo that came in the starter decks, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, it did. I don't know if it had the first edition stamp on it for the starter decks or not. I would imagine not. But when I was going through my cards a couple months ago, trying to make sure I had my base set still, I was just finding all the cards here and there and putting together in one book. So
yes,
I don't know exactly where I came across that one, but it is a cool card.
Yeah, what a great thing to discover that you held on to. We have another trio coming up. This one's kind of an unusual trio, I think. People have kind of mixed feelings, if I understand. And so we have the Bellsprout, Weeping Bell, and Victory Bell. And people who really like grass types seem to really like them. People who aren't so keen on grass types tend to be kind of annoyed by things by Bellsprout, like Bellsprout. But Bellsprout also kind of ate Ash's lunch in a couple of episodes of the anime, so you've got to respect that.
I myself am not a big grass fan, as you can see from my other rankings. I ranked Venusaur low. I ranked the Vileplume group low. Out of as far as sets of 3 go, this is probably my least favorite set of 3. I don't find a lot of utility in grass, especially in the first game. Anything a grass Pokemon can do, usually an electric Pokemon could do. In the first game, there wasn't all these subsets. Really, there was only like 6 types, right? So grass was good against water, but so was electric. And you could have things like Jolteon or Zapdos, right? You could have pretty strong electrics. There was no need to have grass. But I mean, out of the 3, I think Weeping Bell is my least favorite. He's just kind of got a weird design. He's got a huge mouth. At least Victory Bell looks at least somewhat intimidating. And Bellsprout's good because it actually looks the most like a plant. So my rankings would probably be Weeping Bell last, and then probably Bellsprout and Victory Bell maybe one stage above it. Together. They have utility, but for me, they're not all that special. I'm not a huge fan.
Sure. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why they had to develop some additional types and had to develop some cross typing over time to sort of complicate, what has utility in what context and that sort of thing. In Pokemon Go, of course, Victory Bell is popular in the Great League because Victory Bell is a hard counter to things like Swampert and Azumarill and some of those water types that are in the meta there. But that's just because of the expanded set of Pokemon that we see in Pokemon Go. And it's still usually outclassed by other Pokemon like Venusaur. Like I would much rather hit a Victory Bell than a Venusaur if I'm running a team with water types. But I think I'm generally with you on those rankings. I think Whipping Bell maybe goes in the D rank because it was one of trainer Erica's Pokemon, and some people have some attachment to her and the Pokemon that she had. So I think maybe it goes there for sort of a similar reason as we had Oddish in there. And then the next two probably C.
Yeah, I'm good with those rankings. They just weren't any, I mean, I never had any teams that would use those. They don't have a lot of utility when you go to the fight the Elite Four,
Mm-hmm.
They just weren't all that valuable.
Right. Yeah. And even in newer games, anything you can do with a Victory Bell, you can also do with a Venusaur, but do it better with a Venusaur. So
yeah, it does better base stats.
Yep. Our next set includes some jellyfish, and I actually really like the biggest one, Tentacruel. I loved that
well, then we're on
episode.
the same page. I was going to rank Tentacruel pretty high.
Yes. I love that episode in the anime where everybody makes the giant Tentacruel angry and it just comes in and starts wrecking buildings. So they have to figure out a way to communicate with it telepathically and try to convince it that they're going to stop hurting the environment. Such a neat design for a Pokemon, such a great storyline there. And I actually was playing some Pokemon Go earlier this morning and won some Great League matches using Tentacruel. I think it's a very undervalued Great League player. Its poison type attacks are very strong against metas like Azumarill, but it can also learn Hydro Pump and some water type moves, which gives it a little extra utility against potential counters. So I really love Tentacruel.
I do too. I'd put him no lower than a B. I could even argue an A if you really like him. His design is cool. He's intimidating. He's scary. I mean, even in that picture, he's got his arms crossed. He's a really cool Pokemon. So I'll let you decide between A or B. I like his design more than I like anything. I just think he looks really cool. He's huge. He's intimidating. But as far as Tentacool, the original one, kind of lame. I mean, he's just a jellyfish. He doesn't have all the arms. He's just kind of an annoyance.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you have to go through the annoyance to get to the Tentacruel, who is a cool looking Pokemon. So I'd probably put Tentacool I'd probably put Tentacool like in D probably. I don't think he's down with there like a Pidgey. But that's probably D and B. I think I'm okay with D and B.
Excellent. Yeah, there was a part of me that wanted to put Tentacruel up there in A, but then I started looking at other Pokemon up there like Alakazam and Poliwrath, and I was like, I don't know if this is quite for me on the same level as, say, Alakazam.
Yeah.
But still great. Definitely better than most.
Well, I mean, we have Alakazam in S, so.
Oh, that's right. We have Kadabra over here. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. Does that change things for you?
I mean, I would have put Arcanine in S. And if that were the case, then I probably would put Tentacruel in A.
Yeah.
But I mean, right now he would still be below in my mind of Machamp and Arcanine. So
I think I'm warming up to that idea of Arcanine being really.
Coming over to my side. Oh yeah, do it. Do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, there it is.
there it is. I think that helps us develop a clearer baseline, and we can put Tentacruel on the same level as like a Kadabra or a Poliwrath.
I think I'm okay with that. I like those rankings.
Excellent. Yeah, I think this is nice. It helps us sort out some of the complexities and nuance between the S tier and the A tier this way.
Perfect.
And the next set, very popular, very well known, particularly the first one. So we have Geodude and Graveler and Golem. And Geodude was famously Brock's sort of buddy Pokemon for a long time in the anime. And Golem is another one of Giovanni's players, and it wrecked some of Ash's Pokemon in the anime.
Yeah, I feel like with all these set of 3, it's almost the same thing every time. The middle stage is easily the least appealing.
Right.
Not necessarily the weakest, but it's just kind of that necessary middle stage to go from, kind of cute, adorable into your, super strong meta player, right? So,
Right.
So for me, Graveler is the lowest ranking, but I like Graveler a lot more than I like Poliwhirl. He's got all the rocks and stuff. He actually grew legs, he just doesn't have the hard shell like Golem. So Graveler is my weakest. I'd probably put him online with probably like maybe Machoke or something. But I do like Golem quite a bit.
I do too.
Especially Golem. One thing about Golem, he could learn self-destruct, right? Which basically meant he would destroy himself, and no matter what the other side was, he would also kill him, at least in the original game. So if you were up against something that you were going to be weak against and knew you couldn't win with the rest of your team, like say you're fighting Lance's Dragonite at the very end, well, you could always do self-destruct with your Golem. It would take him out, but then you would take out, say, Lance's Dragonite. So by that aspect alone, he was capable of beating any one Pokemon, or at least coming to a stalemate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree that it has a lot of utility in addition to having a really cool design, and both of these last two have prominent roles in some of the early lore. So I don't think I could see either of them being lower than B, and maybe
I like them better than all the ones in C. I'd be okay with B for both of those.
Do you think that B is high enough?
I think B would be high enough for Geodude. I could see Golem going up higher. I don't think Geodude would be an A category for me. But I could be convinced for Golem to be in the A. But
I think I like Golem for A right now, if you're all right with that. Again, we can always move them around later if we want, but such a neat design with the shell, very fierce looking. It was one of Giovanni's Pokemon. We saw how strong it was in the anime. Lots of utility in the games because of the rock/earth typing, so it has access to movesets that would beat some of the things that would seem to be strong against it. I think it's an all-around really great player.
Sounds good to me.
Then we have our fire horses, Ponyta and Rapidash. I've got to say,
these would be I was gonna say these are my wife's favorite Pokemon. She loves horses. In the small time that she played Pokemon Go with me, she never got very high. She's like level 18 or 20, somewhere around there. And she just loved catching a Ponyta and Rapidash. So those are my favorite. I mean, I think their design is good. If you haven't noticed, I actually like fire Pokemon quite a bit, with Charizard and Arcanine. Fire is probably my favorite. Even though we haven't got to my favorite Pokemon yet, who isn't fire type, but we'll get to there when we get to there. But I actually like the design of both of these fairly well. I do like Rapidash a lot more. since, growing up, when I was a 10-year-old boy, obviously I liked the much bigger stallion than the pony.
Sure.
But I know they're both, Ponyta's fairly popular.
Mhm.
So I think they're both at least C or higher.
Yeah. I never developed a super strong attachment to them, but I had several childhood friends who just really thought they were the best things out there. So I think, on design and popularity alone, we can do Ponyta as maybe a C, and then Rapidash is probably a tier or two higher. It is a pretty strong fire type, and it can learn earth type moves, which help to increase its utility. My gut says to put it in B, but you might have a better sense of how valuable it
No,
is.
B. I was thinking B because I like Machamp and Golem more than I like Rapidash. So I
Yeah,
think B is probably a good spot for Rapidash.
cool. Then we have our next set of psychic types, which are, I think, some of the most odd Pokemon that they came up with for this first gen. We have Slowpoke and Slowbro. Do you remember any of the lore on Slowbro?
I mean, I know that the Slowpoke, they go and they just dip their tail into the water, and this shell thing bites onto them. And it was kind of like a rite of passage or like maturity. It was kind of, they don't really evolve. It was just the Slowpoke gets bitten by whatever that thing is that has eyes. You can see the little eyes on it. So I don't know what it is. It's not considered its own Pokemon. It's not like a fusion or anything like that. So it's some kind of creature that is not a Pokemon that bites on to Slowpoke.
Am I remembering
But
correctly that
uh,
it's a shelder that transforms
oh,
when it bites it?
rough looking. But yeah, I do remember that now. It's a shoulder that bites onto him. So it's interesting. It's good for the story. It makes, it's like, oh, okay. I don't particularly like either one of them. They're not very useful in my opinion. They never were on any of my teams.
Yeah.
In the original ones. And there's never really, in my opinion, use when you need water and psychic. But I don't by any means think they're in the E tier or anything like that. I'd probably put them in C or D. I don't know. That's just kind of my opinion. I mean, I do like the story of Slowbro with, I guess, yeah, Shelder biting his tail. But other than that, not a big, doesn't really pull up my heartstrings or anything like that.
Sure. Yeah. I think Slowpoke can definitely be like a D tier, and then I'd probably say Slowbro is more of a C. A
Works for
lot
me.
of folks who play Pokemon Go like to use Slowbro as an alternative to some other psychic types just to give it some, a wider range of available moves. But if you're really wanting to do a lot of psychic damage, you should probably just choose a pure psychic like a Hypno or an Alakazam. So, and then we have our little magnet friends. And I like Magnemite more than some of the other commons. I thought it was a fun design with the eye and the different polarities building up the electricity. It's not just like a great Pokemon, but it's more interesting than Rattata or Nidoran or something.
Um, yeah, I always thought they were kind of weird. Like they're non-organic, right? Like
Yeah.
they're metal, right? Like a metal Pokemon's kind of weird. It's not like it's not even an animal at that point. Most Pokemon are kind of like, oh, it's kind of like an animal, right? I mean, they're kind of metal and they're like something you'd find at like a power grid or something. So I was always just kind of like, that's kind of weird. They're non-organic. How are they even born, right? Or are they created? Are they made in a factory? It's just kind of, I don't know. Especially when you're a kid, you're like, what is this? It doesn't look like any of the other Pokemon. It was kind of weird.
The questions that kept us up at night as children.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the third evolution is basically just 3 Magnemites coming together to make Magneton. It's almost like Diglett Dugtrio, but I like Dugtrio more than I like Magneton. I mean, all in all, I think they're kind of weird. For me, I wouldn't rank them very high. I do think Magnemite's more interesting than Pidgey and Rattata. So if it was me, I'd probably put them both in the D category. But
I want to make the argument that maybe Magneton goes in C. I don't think it's like completely top tier, but I do think it's pretty strong as an electric type. And I always liked the design as a kid. I thought it was interesting to have all the pieces coming together so that they made kind of a coherent whole while still being separate, which I guess is the same idea as Dugtrio. But the thing about Dugtrio is that it has more utility, but I just didn't think the design was that interesting. But maybe they go in the same.
Yeah, like I said, I like Dugtrio more, but we'll say that's maybe Dugtrio's in the top half of tier C and Magneton's in the bottom half of tier C for me. So, like I said, the design is, in my opinion, it's kind of lazy. The same as Dugtrio. I mean, nothing changed. If you just cover up 2 of the eyes of Magneton, you basically see Magnemite. So, right. But I'm cool with it being in a tier higher.
Okay. Well, we'll set it there for now, and then we'll see again at the end. I think it should be a little easier to go through these next few, unless you have very different feelings than me about them. But I don't think Farfetch'd or Doduo or Dotrio are all that interesting.
No. I mean, the only thing I'll say about Farfetch'd was basically in the original game, there was no wild Farfetch'd, right? The only way you could get one was there was a random NPC that you had to trade a sparrow for. So for your Pokedex, you just had to catch a sparrow, go find this guy in a building who's just standing there. His only objective is to trade a sparrow or trade sparrow and Farfetch'd. I mean, yeah, there's not a whole lot there. I would probably put Farfetch'd in D because I think he's better than Pidgey. And things like that. But I mean, yeah, he's just a little bird and has no value. Like I said, the only aspect was that it taught you how to trade, basically, because it happened pretty early in the game.
And it's still a region exclusive in Pokemon Go, so it's not just super available. I think the rarity of it makes it kind of interesting for some people. So yeah, definitely above the bottom tier, but otherwise it's just another bird.
Yeah, it's in there with the rest of the birds, Sparrow and Pharaoh, and so.
Right. Its evolution is much better. I really love Sirfetch'd, but that's a conversation.
Yeah, I do too. He's like a knight. He's got a sword and a shield, but hey, when I was kids, there was no even thought of an evolution for Farfetch'd. So.
Yeah, and I'd probably put Doduo and Dotrio both in the bottom rank. I really have never seen any appeal.
I'm right there with you. The only thing I can say about them is I know basically
like we have some lag here.
You could use Charizard or Dragonite or something.
So I had a little lag and I missed most of that explanation.
No, I was just saying, yeah, they're just kind of boring Pokemon, and the only place you could really catch them was the Safari Zone.
Yeah.
And there's just not a lot of value. I mean, it's cool that they're kind of big. All in all, they have no place on any team. So
I agree. They get outclassed by other types, earth types and flying types. Not that interesting of a design. Yeah, I'm glad we're in the same place there. Now for the next two, Seal has a bit of a following because it's one of the Cerulean City Pokemon, and they had them there with the Cerulean sisters, right?
I definitely like Seal a lot more than I like everything in E and probably most everything in D. I would probably put Seal at least in tier C. He's just a cooler Pokemon. I mean, he's not really much design. He looks like a real life seal. What I will say about Dugong though is in the original game, there wasn't very many Pokemon that could learn ice attacks. Obviously there's Articuno, but then after that, it's basically only Dugong and Cloister that could even do ice attacks. But Dugong had a lot of value. I mean, even on his original card, it's Ice Beam. That's his main attack. So he had value there. As far as design goes, he's not much different than Seal. So I wouldn't put him up, in A or anything, but I'd probably put Dugong in B. Just value from his ice abilities because there's not much to choose from. Oh, and Lapras. So yeah, out of the 151 Pokemon, there's like 4 that can learn ice attacks. So
yes, I'm right there with
those are my thoughts on this.
I also think Dugong has kind of a majestic look that makes it a little bit higher than Seal just in terms of design. And even in contemporary games like Pokemon Go, Dugong still holds a lot of utility because of the water-ice dual typing, which means it gets the same type attack bonus on either move, which is not something you get from, say, a standard water type like Blastoise that happens to learn Ice Beam. So I think Dugong is pretty neat, definitely above some of those C-tier Pokemon for sure.
Yeah, he's up at the top of the leaderboards in the Great League. Good old Dugong.
Oh yeah. I have a 3-star Dugong for the Great League, but in order to, you need double elite moves to get it to that rank.
My Dugong has both of those attacks because I caught my Dugong, or I caught my Seal or my Dugong, in 2016. So it has, what is it, Icy Wind and Icy Shard, or Icy Shard and Icy Wind. So I have the Dugong I use whenever I do that. I've got a 1500 CP exactly, almost maxed out 3-star. Got 4 of those are almost full, and it's got I guess it'd be 44 out of 45, and it's got Icy Shard and Icy Wind. So
you ought to be killing it in the Great League then.
Yeah, I mean, I usually lead off with him. It's pretty safe lead off, and usually, because every time you attack with one of those, I think it lowers their defense or their attack. It's got extra abilities.
Yeah, that's the same move set that I use on my Articuno, and I use it for the same reason, because even if Icy Wind is weak against something, you're still dropping their stats every time. So it's like
he's like a tank too. He's got a ton of hit points.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tankier than Articuno in Pokemon Go. So its CP doesn't get quite as high. So Articuno is better for the Ultra League, but in terms of play in the Great League, I think Dugong would probably even beat Articuno just because it can take so many hits before it goes down, and it has access to a wider range of moves.
Yep, I think we're in agreement there.
All right, so we have our little sludge people, Grimer and Muck. I always thought Grimer was kind of gross, but I sort of liked Muck. I don't know what I saw as the big difference between them, but it just looked like your standard 70s goo monster.
Yeah, it looks like
Looks like you lagged out one more time there. It's my connection, I know it is.
Oh,
Hey,
technical-
welcome back. So sorry we got disconnected there. I'm gonna share the screen again. Can you see everything?
yeah, I can now. Guess you'll have to do a bit of editing before you post this out.
If I can find some editing tools, otherwise the audience is just gonna have to listen to my mumbling about hating internet connections there. I'll do my best.
Fair enough. So that's like I said, I'd throw Grimer. I'd throw Grimer in D and probably Muck in C. That'd probably be what I would say.
Yeah. I'm definitely with you. Grimer was a little scarier, a little more difficult to catch and overcome than some of those bottom tiers, but still not anything just super great. Yeah, Muck is probably on par with things like Slowbro and Victory Bell. Maybe it has some really specific utility. There's some things to like about the design, but it's not just an outstanding design or have the same type of combat power as some of the others here. Okay, next up we have Shelder, who we were just talking about as we were discussing Slowbro, and its evolution Cloister, one of the other handful of Pokemon that can use Ice Beam. How do you feel about these two? Still with me?
Yeah, you're starting to cut out a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you still hear me?
Yep. Yeah. What are you thinking about Shelder and Cloister?
I do like the Shelder Slowpoke connection. So for that alone, I think that keeps him out of the E category. But he's still just kind of a lame Pokemon. I'd probably put the Shelder in D, would be my first inclination. But I do actually really like Cloister. I think Cloister is right up at the top. I'd put Cloister right along the lines of Tentacruel. I think his design is really cool. He's kind of dark and mysterious. He can learn ice attacks. He's almost like 3-tiered. He's like water, poison, and ice. I like Cloister a lot. I don't know exactly how you feel about him, but I'd say he's like right on par with Tentacruel in my opinion. So
yeah, Cloister is one of my favorite
that cool vibe
designs. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great that it has access to ice moves. I think it's one of the most interesting designs of all of the first gen Pokemon. Great in battle, interesting to watch, sort of a mysterious figure. Yeah, I'm with you. I really like Cloister, so I think putting it up in the A tier is a great idea.
Yeah, that hard shell gives him good defense stats. And he just looks cool. So
yes. So I think maybe we should wrap up with Kingler and not push the internet connection here too hard. But I'm really excited about our last few to talk about here because they're very popular, very well loved. So the next set is our classic Ghost trio. We have Gastly, who of course helped Ash defeat Sabrina in the anime, and Gastly's evolution Haunter, which has a lot of utility in the games and also has, I think, just an absolutely stunning design. And Gengar, who might be one of the best Pokemon just of all time, extremely popular. I know you have feelings about these three, so I'm just going to open the floor there.
okay, well, we have reached my favorite Pokemon. It is indeed Gengar. It's hard not to like Gengar. In my opinion, Gengar is an S tier Pokemon, and I will accept nothing less. If you'd like to argue it, you can You can go at it. You can have an attempt, but I'll do none of it. And here's the reason why. I mean, first of all, he's got such a good personality character. I mean, he's kind of a jokester. He's a trickster. He looks really cool. Ghosts are so limited in the 151. I mean, there's only 3 of them, and he's the best of the ghost, right? So if you want ghost typing, that's who you have to use. And the best thing about Gengar in the original games was pretty much any normal type attack was guaranteed to miss.
Yeah.
You couldn't use things like Scratch or Karate Chop or Bite. They couldn't hit a ghost Pokemon, right? So they had to use something like Ember or Thunder Shock or Water Gun, something that was elemental based, or it would miss. So if you're going up against, anybody that's trying to use Tackle or anything like that, it was a guaranteed miss. So it was already really good use.
Right.
And I'll tell you, going through the Elite Four, one of the things I would do almost every time was you learn Hypnosis and Dream Eater, right? Hypnosis is the best thing to use to put someone to sleep because it's 100% effective. It's better than, I think Jigglypuff uses like Lullaby or Sleep, something like that. And, they could put you to sleep too, or Sleep Powder, but Hypnosis was guaranteed. And Dream Eater hits so hard. You could probably, and the thing is, the other Pokemon can't attack back because he's asleep. Usually they'd be asleep for 2 or 3 turns, and by that time you're already dead. So, and in Pokemon Go, he can learn Shadow Ball, which is probably one of the hardest hitting moves in the entire game.
Yes.
He's a bit of a glass cannon in Pokemon Go, but he does have one of the highest attack stats in the game. He does get killed pretty easily though, but I mean, Gengar is by far my favorite Pokemon, not even close. I've got my original base set Gengar card, who I absolutely love.
Yeah. Oh, the memories.
Such a cool card. So that's my spiel on Gengar. You can chime in. But I'll go ahead and give my other ones on Haunter and Gastly. Haunter, I like just as much. Not S tier. I would put Haunter in the A tier. If anything, he's actually scarier. He's actually the biggest trickster. He likes to lick people, all that stuff. So I would put Haunter in the A tier, one below. He's got some awesome cards. Even the Haunter Pokemon card is just as cool, right? I mean,
yeah.
I hate that there's so much glare on my screen, but yeah, there you go. It's a really cool card. So I like both of those quite a bit. But as far as Gastly, I mean, he's just a little bit of gas, some smoke. So I put him a lot lower. Yeah, C tier's probably fine with me. I could even go lower. I don't think he's up in B unless you have something specific for Gastly, but for me, he's just kind of a puff of smoke. And I think the real magic happens in stage 2 and 3.
Yeah. Well, I am absolutely with you on Gengar and Haunter. The fact that Gengar is a trickster just kind of made it even spookier to me. It has some of the best moves in any of the games that one can play with it. Such great lore. I think Haunter is such a neat design. It's even scarier than Gengar in a lot of ways because it has all of those jagged edges, right? And the disembodied hands. Super creepy.
Yeah, no body.
Yes. So I think S and A ranking are great for those. I would have potentially argued to put Gastly in the A rank as well. So I'm thinking maybe B will be a happy medium.
Yeah, that works.
There's several reasons for that. One is that I don't think it's just a puff of gas. I think that they made intentional effort with the eyes and the fangs at the mouth to make it very vampiric, which I think is an interesting design choice. And also, of course, it hung around with Ash and helped him beat Sabrina and her Kadabra in the anime. They also encountered more Gastly in the anime pretending to be long lost spirits, right? There's the Spirit of the Cliff or whatever that episode is, where Gastly plays a pretty important role there. And we learned that Gastly can learn to speak in languages that humans know as well. So it kind of has that Meowth thing going there too. So just on the lore
Kind of like a
alone,
spirit. I can see that. It's like a spirit. Yeah, it's kind of like an essence more than I guess a puff of gas.
yeah, despite what the name sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with him in B. So yeah, I don't know if Gengar was your favorite Pokemon, but he definitely is mine. So
Gengar is not my favorite Pokemon, but it is
so it's
definitely
still out there.
it's still out there.
Favorite
Yeah,
still out there. Okay,
my
cool. Can't
favorite
wait.
is in the top 151 here, so we will hit it eventually.
Cool. All right, I think we've got 5 more to do on this session, and then we'll get back with part 3.
Perfect. Yeah, so Onyx, the famous rock snake, obviously closely attributed to Brock and was very important as one of Brock's Pokemon in both the anime and in those early Red and Blue games. So I feel like Onyx has a pretty big following, pretty neat design, lots of history in the folklore. What are you thinking?
I like Onyx a lot. I like his design. He's huge. He's just physically powerful. Is what he looks like. I'm a big fan. Yeah, you're like you said, the connection to Brock. I didn't really like that Pikachu was able to beat Onyx in the anime. I mean, yeah, he had some help with the sprinkler system and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
But all in all, Onyx is a really cool Pokemon. I'd put him either in A or B, in my opinion.
Yeah. I also think it's a top tier Pokemon. My gut says B, unless you have a specific reason why we should
I'm
move
good
it
with
higher.
B.
I think it's really good. I think it's better than most, but it just, if I have the choice between looking at artwork or watching a TV episode about Onyx or Haunter, I'm going to pick Haunter.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't like him near as much as I like Haunter, but I like him a lot better than I like anything in C or anything like that. And I
Mhm.
mean, he's probably on par with Ninetales. I like Ninetales quite a bit. So
Yeah,
I'm happy with that.
excellent. And the next two are actually among my favorites as well. It's no surprise that I have a bias toward the psychic types, but um, I had an interest in mesmer and mesmerism, which is maybe a weird thing to say, but I think that if you study history and the history of the way that we developed communication technologies over time, that sometimes people underestimate the role that mesmer played in helping us learn about what communication is and giving people ideas for new communication technologies. And the fact that mesmerism, of course, it didn't work exactly like he said it worked, but the fact that mesmerism was so mysterious, right? And it seemed very magical was kind of an interesting aspect of this guy's life. And having a Pokemon built around Mesmer that just embraces the sort of mystical lore surrounding Mesmer and his life, I think was such a neat idea. So Hypno is one of my absolute favorites from this first gen.
I do like Hypno a lot more than I like Drowsy. So I'm all game for putting Hypno, up in the A or B tier. I like Hypno, I don't like Drowsy near as much. It's kind of one of those you've got to start weak to get to something cool. Like Hypno, I'm all for. I don't really like I said, I don't like Drowsy all that much. I was always asleep in the anime, is what it seemed like. Him and
Right.
Snorlax would just sleep all the time. So, but no, I like Hypno, and I can tell you really like Hypno, so I'm all for putting Hypno up pretty high.
Excellent. So maybe Drowsy goes in the D tier. We just have to get through a little more. Hold out, internet connection. Are you back with us?
Yep. Where'd you put Hypno? Kind of lagged a little bit. I see Drowsy's in D, which I think is good. He's better than Pidgey.
Yeah,
And did you put Hypno in A or B?
I put it in A, if you don't have any objections to that.
That's fine. I think he's great. No, no, I like Hypno. He's kind of almost human-like a little bit in that manner, but other than
Yeah.
that would be my only downfall. He kind of is like a person, but still animal enough alike to like it. So
Right. But it still has the, the pointy ears and
like an
the,
elf is kind of what it looks like.
yes, the slouched shoulders. In my head, it was kind of like if Dr. Seuss drew a horror character, this is something like how it would turn out.
Yeah, yeah, it could be scary, especially if you came across that in the dark. So
Oh, yeah. And in Pokemon Go, it is just by far one of the best Great League players. It
oh
can
yeah,
learn so many different moves, and it's one of the tankiest Pokemon.
all right, two more.
Two more. We've got Crabby and we've got Kingler. How do you feel about little crabs?
I like Kingler a lot. I'm not the biggest fan of Crabby. I like him
Yeah.
better than the mushroom crabs. So for that reason alone, I would put Crabby in at least D. I like him better than Pears and Parasect.
Yep.
But I do like Kingler quite a bit, and I'll tell you why. He can learn a move. He's one of two Pokemon in the game that can learn Guillotine.
Oh, right.
And in the original game, it was basically had very little accuracy. Like you can only hit like 33% of the time, like 1 out of 3. But if it hit, it was guaranteed to kill the other Pokemon. So it was no matter who it was, it didn't matter at all. If you connected, it was a 1-hit KO. So it was basically him and Pinsir that could learn Guillotine. And it would miss a lot. You'd use it and you'd miss. But if it hit, it was a guaranteed 1-hit KO. So, and the design is really cool. He's got a giant claw. So I like Kingler, and I usually would keep a Kingler on my team for that reason. If I'd come up against someone that was going to have a ton of hit points, like a Snorlax or something, I would just, someone that's sleeping and not really going to be doing damage, because basically all Snorlax would do is the attack called Rest, which basically just brings back his hit points over and over. So you could beat it down, but it would just go back to sleep and heal. So you use someone like Kingler, and all you have to do is just attack until you hit, and then you automatically kill him. So that was a good strategy to use.
Yes. I'm totally with you on the design of Kingler. I thought it was cool that it had that one giant claw. It almost looks like it has fangs, which is kind of creepy for a crab. It has that bright design, so I think that's very neat. Guillotine's one of those moves that I would love to see come to Pokemon Go. It doesn't exist in that game yet, but I imagine that it would be, something akin to like Solar Beam or Aeroblast, where it does massive damage, but it just takes, a long time to charge it or whatever. But it would be interesting to see Guillotine come in there. The move Crab Hammer was just boosted in Pokemon Go, so it does more damage now. And I've started working on training a Kingler for Pokemon Go, because now that Crab Hammer's been boosted, I think it's going to have a lot more utility. So do you think maybe the B rank?
Yeah, I mean, I like Haunter better than Kingler, and some of those other ones in the A tier. So I think B's a good spot.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks for being on again. Thanks for your patience as we dealt with some of that lag, but I think we made it through without too much interruption. I'm very happy with where we have placed each Pokemon so far.
Yep. I look forward to part 3. We've got 50 more to go, or I guess 51 more to go.
We do, including some very popular Pokemon. We'll be ranking Gyarados, we'll be ranking Dragonite, we'll have all of the legendaries to look forward to, all of the evolutions, very popular, so that should be a lot of fun. So I am AlaKAHamm, and this is ToCool101, our resident Kanto expert, and we will be back with another episode ranking the last 51 Pokemon very, very soon. So be sure to check back at this channel again at your earliest convenience. Talk to you next time.